Before we dive into this incredible story, if you're enjoying these untold Hollywood secrets, please hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking celebrity revelations. Your support means the world to us. Now let's get into this It was December 3rd, 1966, and Clint Eastwood was sitting alone at the bar of the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, nursing his third whiskey of the night. His career was in ruins, he was nearly broke, and he was seriously considering giving up acting forever. That's when Dean Martin slid onto the bar stool next to him. "You look like someone just told you that John Wayne died," Dean said in that smooth, laid-back voice that had made him famous. Clint looked up, surprised to see one of the biggest stars in the world talking to him. "Mr. Martin, I didn't expect to see you here." "Call me Dean," he said, signaling the bartender for a drink. "And you're Clint Eastwood, right? The guy from those spaghetti westerns?" Clint nodded, embarrassed. At that moment, being known for those spaghetti westerns felt like a curse rather than an accomplishment. What happened next would change Clint Eastwood's life forever and turn him from a washed-up TV actor into one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Now, let me back up here and explain how Clint Eastwood, who would become one of Hollywood's greatest legends, ended up sitting in a Las Vegas bar contemplating the end of his career. In 1966, Clint was 36 years old and felt like a complete failure. His TV show Rawhide had just been canceled after 8 years, and he was struggling to find work in Hollywood. The 3 spaghetti westerns he had made with Sergio Leone in Italy, A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, had been huge hits in Europe. But American studios and critics were completely dismissing them. American critics called them violent trash, recalled Clint's agent at the time. They said Clint had ruined his career by making cheap Italian knockoffs of real westerns. Hollywood executives wouldn't even take meetings with Clint. They saw him as a TV actor who had made some questionable career choices, not as someone with movie star potential. "I was essentially blacklisted," Clint said years later. "Nobody in Hollywood wanted to work with me. I was considered box office poison." The financial situation was even worse. Clint had invested most of his Rawhide earnings in a restaurant that had failed spectacularly. He was behind on his mortgage payments and was seriously considering selling his house. That's why he was in Las Vegas that December night. He was there for a small appearance at a casino show, basically working for whatever money he could get. But Dean Martin saw something in Clint that nobody else in Hollywood was seeing at the time. Dean had actually seen A Fistful of Dollars during a trip to Rome, and unlike the American critics, he understood that Clint was doing something revolutionary with the Western genre. "This kid's got something special," Dean had told Frank Sinatra after seeing the movie. "He's not trying to be John Wayne, he's creating something completely new." So when Dean spotted Clint at the Sands that night, looking defeated and lost, he decided to intervene. "You know," Dean said, taking a sip of his drink, "I saw your Italian Western. Pretty impressive stuff." Clint was shocked. Nobody in American entertainment had said anything positive about his European work. You actually watched it?" Clint asked. "Watched it? Hell, I've seen it 3 times, Dean replied. "That scene where you light your cigar with the dynamite fuse, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen on screen." Wait until you hear what Dean said next, because it completely changed how Clint saw himself. "You know what your problem is?" Dean continued. "You're trying to please people who don't understand what you're doing. Those Italian movies aren't lesser than American westerns. They're better. They're more honest about what the West was really like." Dean paused, looking directly at Clint. "But you're letting Hollywood tell you that you should be ashamed of them. That's your first mistake." This was the first time anyone in the American entertainment industry had validated Clint's work. For months, he had been feeling like maybe the critics were right. Maybe he had made terrible career choices. "I started to believe that maybe I really had screwed up," Clint admitted years later. "Dean was the first person to tell me that I should be proud of those movies instead of apologizing for them." But Dean didn't just offer encouragement. He offered something much more valuable. He offered to help. Here's what's going to happen, Dean said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. Tomorrow night, Frank and I are doing a show here at the Sands. You're going to be our special guest. Clint couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Rat Pack was the most exclusive group in entertainment. Having Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin introduce you to their audience was like receiving a royal endorsement. Mr. Martin, Dean, I don't think that's such a good idea, Clint said. Your audience isn't going to know who I am. That's exactly the point, Dean replied with a smile. After tomorrow night they will. Actually, let me tell you about what happened at that Rat Pack show, because it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The Sands showroom was packed with 1,200 people, celebrities, high rollers and VIPs from across the country. This was the most exclusive ticket in Las Vegas. Frank and Dean did their usual routine for about an hour, singing, telling jokes, making fun of each other and the audience. The crowd was eating it up. Then about halfway through the show, Dean stopped the music. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, I want to introduce you to someone special. This is a guy who's making the kind of movies that Hollywood should be making, but isn't smart enough to make. The audience was intrigued. When Dean Martin gave someone his personal endorsement, people paid attention. This man has revolutionized the Western genre, Dean continued. He's made movies that are tougher, smarter, and more exciting than anything coming out of American studios. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Clint Eastwood. The applause was polite but not overwhelming. Most of the audience had never heard of Clint. But then Dean did something that nobody expected. He called for the lights to be dimmed and had them project clips from A Fistful of Dollars on screens around the showroom. For 10 minutes, the most sophisticated audience in America watched scenes from Clint's spaghetti western, with Dean providing commentary about why the movie was so innovative. Look at this, Dean said, as they showed the famous poncho and cigar scene. This isn't your grandfather's cowboy. This is what a real gunfighter would actually look like. By the time the clips were over, the audience was mesmerized. They had never seen anything like Clint's character, the man with no name. When Clint finally took the stage, the applause was thunderous. Dean had completely changed how the audience saw him, from an unknown actor to a revolutionary artist. Don't forget to comment below and let us know what other Hollywood friendships you'd like to hear about. But Dean wasn't finished helping Clint. Over the next several months, he used his influence to open doors that had been closed to Clint for years. Dean personally called several studio heads and told them they were making a mistake by ignoring Clint. You idiots are missing out on the next big thing, Dean told United Artists executive David Picker. This kid is going to be huge whether you get involved or not. The question is whether you want to make money with him or watch someone else make money with him. Dean also arranged for Clint to attend exclusive Hollywood parties, where he could meet producers and directors who had previously refused to work with him. Dean basically became my sponsor in Hollywood, Clint said. He vouched for me at a time when my own agent had given up on me. The first major breakthrough came when director Don Siegel agreed to meet with Clint about a new project called Coogan's Bluff. Siegel later admitted that he only took the meeting because Dean Martin had personally recommended Clint. Dean told me that Clint was the most underrated actor in Hollywood, Siegel recalled. Coming from someone like Dean, that meant something. Coogan's Bluff became Clint's first successful American film, and it led directly to the Dirty Harry series, which made him one of the biggest stars in the world. But Dean's most important contribution to Clint's career wasn't any single favor. It was the confidence he gave him. Actually, you know what's really interesting? Dean taught Clint how to handle Hollywood politics and media criticism. Dean showed me that you don't have to play their games, Clint explained years later. You don't have to apologize for doing good work just because some critic doesn't understand it. Dean's own career was a perfect example of this philosophy. He had been criticized for years for being too laid back, too casual, not serious enough as a performer. But Dean never let the critics change who he was. He stayed true to his own style and became one of the most beloved entertainers of his generation. Dean taught me that authenticity beats approval every time, Clint said. If you're genuine about what you're doing, The audience will eventually recognize it, even if the critics don't. This lesson became the foundation of Clint's entire approach to his career. He stopped trying to make movies that would please critics, and started making movies that felt true to his own vision. The results speak for themselves. Dirty Harry, Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and dozens of other classics that defined American cinema. But perhaps Dean's most valuable gift to Clint was teaching him about loyalty and friendship in Hollywood. Dean showed Clint that real friendship in the entertainment industry meant supporting someone when they're down, not just when they're successful. Most people in Hollywood are your friend when you're hot and disappear when you're not, Clint observed. Dean was different. He helped me when I needed help, not when it was convenient for him. This lesson stayed with Clint throughout his career. He became known as someone who was loyal to the people who had helped him, and who was willing to help younger actors and directors the way Dean had helped him. When Clint started his own production company, Malpaso Productions, he made a point of hiring people who were struggling to get work in Hollywood, just as he had been. Clint never forgot what Dean did for him, said producer Fritz Mans, who worked with Clint for decades. He was always looking for ways to pay that kindness forward. The friendship between Dean and Clint continued for years after that night at the Sands. Dean would often call Clint when he was considering new projects, asking for his opinion on scripts and directors. Clint, in turn, would consult with Dean about his own career decisions, particularly when it came to choosing which movies to make. Dean had incredible instincts about entertainment, Clint said. He could read a script and immediately know whether it would connect with audiences. Actually, let me tell you about one of the most touching moments in their friendship. In 1995, when Dean was seriously ill and rarely making public appearances, Clint flew to Las Vegas specifically to visit him. They spent an entire afternoon together, talking about their careers, their families, and the changes they had seen in Hollywood over the decades. During that conversation, Dean made a confession that surprised Clint. "You know," Dean said, "helping you that night at the Sands was one of the best things I ever did. Not because of your success, but because I got to be friends with a genuinely good person." He paused, his voice becoming more serious. "This business is full of phonies and users. But you never changed, Clint. You're the same man you were when I met you at that bar." That conversation took place just months before Dean's death, and it meant more to Clint than any award or recognition he had ever received. When Dean Martin died on Christmas Day, 1995, Clint was one of the pallbearers at his funeral. In his eulogy, Clint said something that perfectly captured what Dean had meant to him. "Dean Martin saved my career, but more importantly, he showed me what it means to be a friend. He taught me that success without loyalty is meaningless, and that helping others succeed is the best way to ensure your own success." He paused, looking out at the crowd of mourners that included some of the biggest names in entertainment. Dean saw potential in people when they couldn't see it in themselves. He believed in dreams when dreamers had given up, and he proved that kindness isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength of all. The impact of Dean's help extended far beyond Clint's individual career. It changed how Clint approached the entire entertainment industry. "Dean taught me that Hollywood doesn't have to be a cutthroat business," Clint said in a later interview. "You can be successful without stepping on other people. You can lift others up and still reach the top yourself." This philosophy became central to how Clint ran his production company and chose his projects. He became known as one of the most collaborative and supportive directors in Hollywood, someone who brought out the best in actors and crew members. Many actors have said that working with Clint was a career-defining experience, not just because of the quality of the films, but because of the supportive environment he created on set. "Clint learned from Dean that leadership means service," said actress Frances Fisher, who worked with Clint on several films. "He serves the story, he serves the actors, he serves the vision." That all came from Dean's example. Looking back at that night in 1966, it's clear that Dean Martin didn't just save Clint Eastwood's career, he saved Clint Eastwood. Without Dean's intervention, Clint might have given up acting altogether and returned to his previous job as a laborer. The world of cinema would have lost one of its greatest actors and directors. But more than that, Dean's act of kindness created a ripple effect that has influenced hundreds of other careers over the decade. Every time Clint helped a young actor or supported a struggling director, he was paying forward the kindness that Dean had shown him. The favor that Dean Martin did for Clint Eastwood in 1966 continues to change lives today, because it taught Clint that success is meaningless unless you use it to help others succeed. In a business known for its cruelty and selfishness, Dean Martin proved that a single act of generosity can change everything. And Clint Eastwood spent the rest of his career proving that Dean was right. The night Dean Martin saved Clint Eastwood's career was really the night that kindness saved the future of American cinema, and we're all better for it.